out there, rock and rollers. Welcome to the 92nd edition of the Ugly American Werewolf in London Rock Podcast, where I, your host, Mac B, the Wolf, take you on a journey of prog rock, hard rock, classic rock, early MTV, everything that he loved growing up and has grown into over the years, with his partner in crime, Gary Action Jackson from the East Coast of the U.S. And we try to lend a little perspective on bands we love and sometimes bands that do well in the U.K. but not in the U.S. and vice versa. It's always an interesting dichotomy of who makes it where and why they don't in certain places and why the fan bases just take to certain people and not to others. And we appreciate you tuning in last week for our talk with Chris Preston of Rock These Tweets and My Rock and Roll Heaven. Great guy, huge Def Leppard fan who just saw his 15th Def Leppard show on the Stadium Tour in Toronto. To give us a great breakdown of the Def Leps and Motley Crue, Poison, Joan Jett. And it provided a nice contrast to Action Jackson's show that he went to in Jacksonville, as Jackson got pelted with rain and all the sets were cut down and he didn't get to see everybody, quite as long as he might have liked to, versus Chris was indoors because he was in the old Sky Dome in the Rogers Center and they put the roof up because they thought it might rain. So suddenly it's a huge indoor show, which changes the dynamic. And it's kind of made for a cool talk. Chris is a great guy, and hopefully you tuned in for that episode. And talk about a band that's super popular in America, but not nearly as popular in their home country. That's Def Leppard. But one that hit huge success kind of everywhere is Genesis. That really didn't happen until the 80s, till they were really the threesome of Tony Banks, Mike Rutherford, and Phil Collins. And they started that way in 1978, and then had huge success, a lot of thanks to MTV in the 80s, not to mention Phil's solo career, nudging along the success of Genesis as well. But for a lot of Genesis fans, the real Genesis was in the 70s, with Peter Gabriel, who went to school with Mike Rutherford. Tony Banks was the original lead singer, which Phil Collins entered in 1971, and Steve Hackett, the legendary guitar player, who's still doing it today and who has been a guest on this show on episode 87, talking about his recent tour, Seconds Out Live, and his upcoming tour, Foxtrot at 50. And that's why we're reading Foxtrot today, because it is about to turn 50. It was a big album for the band. Yes, Peter Gabriel, Mike Rutherford, and Tony Banks had been together since high school and started the band there. And they grew up. They made a couple records. They had to make a couple of changes. And bringing in Phil Collins and Steve Hackett really solidified this huge level of individual talent in the band and really started to open up some avenues of all the different textures and sounds that they could create in Genesis. So they started together with Nursery Crimes, the five of them, in 1971. It kind of took a toll on Steve Hackett, I think. He was kind of new to the big world of big touring rock bands, and it kind of took a little bit of a toll on him. And he wasn't sure if the guys really appreciated it and thought he would just step out. They said, no, you did well. And I think they had a great tour of Italy that went down very well, and they got some good exposure there. Another date in England went well for them and got them some good exposure and gave them some confidence. Like, hey, we can do these live stuff. We can write longer songs and more thought-out stories. And so Foxtrot, on the second side of Foxtrot, there is a 23-plus minute song, epic, called Supper's Ready, with all these time changes and time signature changes, chord changes. Gabriel changes his lyrics and his tone quite a bit throughout some of the stuff. It's really kind of amazing. It's a kind of a mini rock opera on one side, although it's not the only song on that side. It's basically the whole side of side two. Horizons, a beautiful Steve Hackett acoustic piece, is a little less than 2 minutes right before it. But this kind of gave them some confidence to go out there and really create something epic. The way Yes was starting to go, because it wasn't long after this that they came up with Tales from Topographic Oceans. And right before this was released in 1972, Yes released Close to the Edge. And Phil Collins said that he was listening to Yes quite a bit and going to see them when Bill Bruford was their drummer, about maybe once a month, to give him some inspiration and think about what he was going to do on his end with Genesis. So there's some great songs in here that would go on to become classics within their genre, classics for the real hardcore fan, but never really made a huge dent on the charts, certainly not in America. Foxtrot did get in the charts in the UK, but not really in America. But it was from this tour that Peter Gabriel started to get a little confidence to, all right, I'm not going to tell the guys, but I'm going to come out in a dress, in a fox head, just like on the album, and really freak some people out. And guess what? It worked. It got people interested. It got them on the front page of Melody Maker. It got them more ticket sales in the U.S. and it gave them the confidence to kind of build that theatrical side of Genesis that would continue through the next couple of albums in the Gabriel era, namely Selling England by the Pound and A Lamb Lies Down on Broadway. So that's what we're going to get into here today. Now, as usual, we want to remind you that we are proud members of the Pantheon Podcast Network of amazing music podcasts, and we have some buddies who've been on the show or we've been on their show, like Paul Stevenson of This Day Rocks and Vintage Rock Pod, like Tom and Zeus of the Shout It Out Loud cast, like Jay Scott of the Hook Rocks, and like our dear sister, Christy Alexander Hallberg, whose new show, Rock is Lit, will be coming out September 15th, so look out for that wherever you get your podcast. Also, we love our sponsor. Great synergy and a great opportunity for you guys who are record collectors to get a good deal on pristine, mint condition, classic records, and that's rarevinyl.com. If you haven't been to rarevinyl.com, you need to go now. You can also go to EIL.com. It's the same company. They've been around about 40 years, and they have over 250,000 items in stock. It's amazing. I've been there. I've met every single person who works there. I've been through their stock rooms. It's a great team, and it's a huge amount of stuff in great condition. And if you use our code PODCAST, you get 10% off. It's not just one purchase. It's every purchase you make throughout your lifetime of buying from them. So go check out rarevinyl.com or EIL.com. Use the code podcast. Save yourself 10%. I've done it. I know a few people do. It's an amazing shop. You can get whatever you really need there, and you get it hard to find in great condition. These people really know what they're talking about. And we did have one of their record buyers, Mike Winben, on. I believe that was episode 89. Oh, and be sure to download, subscribe wherever you get your podcasts. And know that you can reach out to us on Twitter at ugly_werewolf and at actionjack72. You can also email us, uglyamericanwerewolf@gmail.com. So with that, with no further ado, let's jump into Foxtrot at 50. It's Foxtrot, the 1972 classic album by Genesis, right here on The Wolf. So, looking into Foxtrot, I mean, obviously, look, we've been becoming Steve Hackett and old school Genesis fans for these last couple of years here, right?
Correct.
Kind of started with me. I got way into him about 7 years ago, whatever it was. Saw the Sum of the Parts documentary. Found Steve Hackett's solo music. Like, wow, this is fantastic. All right, and then let me go back and hear some of the old Peter Gabriel, Steve Hackett Genesis tunes. I kind of got into it, but I didn't get into all the albums all at once. I didn't like buy them all or just listen to them all at once. Mm-hmm. Kind of started to go a little bit one by one, and sometimes I had a greatest hits album that would have some of their bigger songs, but not all of them. Obviously, I got into Seconds Out a little bit, which is their second live album that was released right after Steve left the band, really. And that's what Steve has been touring on for the last year or so, and still has some dates to make up later this year. But he is, on September 9th in the UK, starting his Foxtrot at 50 tour. Mm-hmm. And Foxtrot turns 50 in October. So October 7th, October 6th, October 8th, somewhere in there is its 50th release date. So I thought this would be a good one to go over because we have some familiarity with some of the songs, but we don't know all the stuff. And, we're not Genesis experts. It's not like we've been listening to this stuff for 50 years and listened to it in college and got way into it. So I don't know. I thought this would be a fun one to do because there's some familiarity. It's stuff we've been gaining a greater affinity for in the last 18 months to 2 years. And it's kind of part of the story. Plus, we get to promote Steve's tour and the live album, Steve Hackett, Genesis Revisited, Seconds Out, and More, which comes out September the 2nd. So there's a lot of Genesis Hackett synergy here.
In the old school Genesis world.
That's right.
Yeah, this was an interesting record because I had not really heard this one before. I was familiar with the title of it, seeing it, and the album cover, which I guess was a pretty big sore spot for the band. I don't think anybody really liked it.
Yeah,
it was. I think it was the same people that had designed earlier record covers for them, which they loved. And this one was like, yeah, I don't really get it. I don't understand what's supposed to be going on here. And there's no like Foxtrot single or track on there, so you tie it in. So yeah, I think they've grown to appreciate it in years after it. But on initial release, I don't think anybody liked it.
Yeah, and I guess Paul Whitehead is the British artist he did Trespass and he did Nursery Crime before, so they figure, let's stay with him. He worked with other artists on their record label like Vandergraaf Generator. Over the years, he worked with a lot of different folk. Lindisfarne, which is a another band that we might want to become familiar with. They were Genesis label mates and toured with them during this time. Yeah, but you're right. I mean, the band didn't seem to like it. It was like he was trying to get, and you have to look at the whole gatefold, right? It's not just the cover, which is a fox in a red dress on an iceberg in the sea. You fold it out, and then what would be the back cover shows four. I think he was trying to do an odd take on the four horsemen of the apocalypse, and there's one alien, like a green space alien.
Yeah.
There's maybe one monkey, like Planet of the Apes type monkey. There's a dude wearing garters and hose or stockings, whatever you want to call it. And it almost looks like he has a very long nose. It's hard to zoom in on some of that stuff. The one between him and the monkey, I'm really not sure what it is. Is it someone blowing their nose? Is it a squid person? I honestly don't know.
I would have loved to have been at the initial meeting where they come in with this thing and like, okay, what do you got for me today? And they pull the sheet off of the large painting and they just say, huh?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, what is happening here? And I'm sure for the artist, I don't know. They're British, so who knows how they conveyed that? Because we'll get into that in a minute about other aspects of the band. But yeah, I can just the disappointment of,
yeah, this is
okay.
weird.
Well, don't you like it? Sure, it's adequate.
Well, I don't know. And then Hackett was like, I liked it more after you explained it to me, and the more it sat with me, the more it made sense. But does that really translate in a record store where it's like flip, 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 Genesis Foxtrot, you get 3 seconds.
Right.
I mean, you don't get the explanation. You don't get to ruminate it on it for a few days. It's like, does this hit or does it miss?
And it's interesting now, if you want to look at all album covers, you have something like this, which, it might be too much going on. And then you have, like Back in Black, which is just black, and you pick it up and you're like, oh, what is this? This is really cool because it's nothing.
Well, I'm glad. I mean, especially today, because it seems like the artwork is going the way of the dodo, right? It's just not as big a thing anymore. People get it on their phones, and it's not like you zoom in. It's not like it's a big 12-inch thing that you look at, every inch, and you pour over it. There's a front and the back, maybe a fold out in the middle, who knows? So, I mean, I'm glad that it's being a little different. It is artistic. It's a little odd, but I mean, it's one of those, if it was in your collection, you'd probably be one of those things that you would stare at a lot, right? I mean, Dark Side of the Moon comes a year later. Okay, it's a prism. I get it,
Yeah.
But this one is, hey, dude, come check this out. Look at this. This is an alien. What is this? Is that a woman blowing her nose? Is it a squid person? What are these condos doing behind them, man? I don't get it.
Are there whales? Why is the fox? Why does the fox is oddly attractive with the dress on? And I don't know what's happening here on an iceberg. Wow, man. But yeah, I'm sure once you get into it, but yeah, like I said, that initial drop the sheet and okay. It's got to be just heartbreaking for the artist.
Right.
But you're right. I think that was such a big part of us growing up, even in the CD age, just flipping through. I don't know what this is, but if the album cover caught your attention, you would pick it up, turn it over, see what it was. Do I know this? And if it didn't, you would just keep flipping.
That's right. Yeah, absolutely. And the fact of the matter is, Genesis was at an interesting time now. I mean, this was their fourth album release, but only their second with Steve Hackett on guitar and Phil Collins on the drums. The original founding members they were school lads together, Peter Gabriel, Tony Banks, and Mike Rutherford, had been doing this really for 6 or 7 years at this point. They were their school band, and then they kind of got their first record deal, and they started touring around. But they played a lot of gigs around Europe, and they'd seen some success. They got in the charts in Italy. They did a big Italian tour before this record came out, and they gave them a little boost. I think it gave them some like, hey, yeah, we really can do this. And I think they played a big festival in Lincolnshire in the UK. That also gave them a little bit of, it drew some attention from the press. But part of that's because Pete's starting to dress a little oddly now, right?
Right. Correct. Which apparently was not something that he ran past the band every time. Sometimes he would just show up and go for it.
I know. And he was shaving that little front part of his head, like right here, just a little bit there. You see all sorts of pictures of him from the 70s like that. It looks extremely odd. But I guess that was the point. He's like, look at this weirdo. We're going to put him all over the newspaper, which, is must have been what he was looking for.
Well, and that was one of the things too that he said initially when he broke these things out, they were, these were stiff upper lip Brits. What is this? I don't think that I like it. Wait, he's on the cover of Melody Maker. Well, maybe this isn't so bad. Maybe we do like our name up in big print on the front of this thing.
Yeah.
So sometimes, yes. I mean, and I think Gabriel even said if he had run this past the guys, he probably would have been shot down. So sometimes you say, I know this is going to work. I'm just going for it.
Well, Banks says it clearly in some of the parts.
Yeah.
It's like, good thing he didn't ask because I never would have let him do it.
And again, Gabriel did say something about how, it's a democracy, but not really, because he said some people have more control over it than others. I can only imagine he meant Tony Banks. And right. He said something too about the first time he broke out the red dress with the fox head on it.
Right.
We're in like Dublin or something.
In like a boxing ring or something like that.
He's like, even though like today it's a lot more progressive there in 1972 or 73, whatever it was, they really didn't want to see a guy in a dress in a fox's head. That didn't go over real well. It wasn't accepted as art.
But it gets you on Melody Maker, and then all of a sudden, you've got more people coming to see you, even across the pond in the States, So, that stuff works. Now, our boy Steve was still kind of getting his feet wet in the band. He was still, I think, building some confidence because, the three founders had been doing this for a while and together and were confident in their abilities. Phil Collins kind of comes from a performing family and, was a professional musician before joining Genesis. And Steve was I think he describes himself as a legend in his own bedroom at this point. He had been in bands, but not like big touring bands and not recording bands, So, he wasn't feeling great at the end of that tour. He thought, maybe I shouldn't do it, but they convinced him to stay because they liked what he did. And though he wrote material that they demoed, not much of it got on, but a lot of the stuff that would eventually go on his solo album, Voyage of the Acolyte, he actually demoed a little bit with the band, including Shadow of the Hierophant with Mike Rufford, which he eventually put on Voyage of the Acolyte and still plays to this day.
And here's where I think that we as people need to be a little nicer to other ones, because apparently Steve was like, he thought he wasn't cutting the mustard in the band, and they had to sit him down and say, no, we really like the way that you're playing. Well, why have you not said anything? I mean, I don't know what's going on. I was getting no feedback. So yeah, you're right. I think he was like, I don't even know what to do. I don't think they really like me here. I don't think they like my playing. When you bring stuff in and they say, yeah, it's great, and then you don't use it, what's going on? But then at the same time too, if you're in a band like this, you have to accept that all of your stuff is not going to get used.
For sure, and it's also coming into a situation where you got those three who had been at school together. Right. They're kind of rich kids, and they kind of know what they're talking about because they've been doing it a little bit longer. The other new guy is Phil Collins, who has kind of a big personality and is quite a musician in his own right? So maybe it took him a little while to find his footing, but he's done some really good work on here, and he does have an acoustic composition, which we'll get into. But it took them a while to kind of find their way. I mean, they kind of had false starts with different producers. They did a non-album single, Happy the Man, which have you heard that one, Jackson?
No, is that good? It's
totally different from the album. It doesn't fit on the album at all. You can tell that the record company was probably looking for a hit singles. Like, you got to get something that's from radio, right? You can't have these 9-minute epics with all these chord changes and all that stuff. And so, yeah, it's a 3-minute song. It's very acoustic. I did make some notes on it that I can share with you. It's a happy little song, really. It's upbeat. It almost has a Supertramp kind of happiness to it at the beginning, yeah. And it's talking about a guy who doesn't have much and doesn't need much, And then even some of the acoustic stuff sounds like they were listening to a little bit of Zeppelin 3 and 4, right, which were out at the time. Not the heavy electric guitar from Jimmy, but a little bit of that acoustic stuff with a little bit of pop polish. And then Seven Stones, which is off Nursery Crimes, was the B-side to it. So they did release it as a single. I don't think it did any damage in the charts, and it's not one I don't think they played a whole lot because it just didn't fit. It was almost like we're going to do something different, and then we're going to go back to writing what we really want to write.
Yeah, and I can imagine at that point in time, it's hard because the record company does want they're in business to sell records. So
Right.
what is it that's going to sell records? A 23-minute track? No, stop that. You need
Right.
singles to go on the radio.
Absolutely true. So yeah, I mean, and this is your fourth album, which, I mean, back then it was like, all right, this is it now, no more
Right.
goofing around. Whereas now it's like you get half of an album, maybe. They release the first single. If it doesn't do good, you don't even get to finish your record. Like, that's it. But so no, they finally they had a couple of different folks on there, and what was it? John Anthony produced Happy the Man. They're like, nah, we don't want him. They tried out Tony Platt. Nah, they don't want him. So they got Dave Hitchcock on to do it, and they started to go, and they reworked some older stuff, and they tried some stuff that would eventually go on to be on other albums. I mean, Tony brought in an early Firth of Fifth, which of course would end up on Selling England by the Pound, which we review on our 28th show.
Yeah,
but so they're creative.
Yeah, and apparently the record company wanted this guy Bob Potter, and they had a meeting with him or something, or they were working with him, and the Watcher in the Skies was brought up, and he was like, "Yeah, I don't like that." And Banks was like, "And you're gone because that's what we're going with. So if you don't like it, bye-bye." So yeah, they did bring in a couple of different people, but I mean, I think. And I'm sure the record company at that point was pulling their hair out because it's like, no, we told you to work with this guy, and now you're fighting back. So what is this thing going to turn out to be? Obviously, you don't have a clear path of what you want, which wasn't the case. They actually really did.
Yeah, that's right. I mean, these are smart guys, and this is not their first time out. They've started to find their sound. They've got a lot of talent between the five of them, instrumentally. And if you could put the sum of the parts together, it really is pretty amazing, And when you listen to Watcher of the Skies, with that kind of heavy-duty Mellotron, at the beginning, which I think he picked up from King Crimson, it's got an otherworldly kind of feel to kind of start off the album. Definitely feels electronic, for sure, and a little bit ominous, to start off here. But it's a cool song, and it's one that I've liked ever since I've come into it in the last 7 years or whatever. The lyrics don't exactly roll off the tongue. It's not one you kind of bop and sing along to. But that Mellotron drives the song. It's not drums or guitar like we're used to.
Right. And yeah, it almost sounds like church music at the beginning. Like you're sitting there like in one of those old school cathedrals listening to somebody play the organ. Yeah, I think Mike Rutherford was saying that this was kind of a mess because they wrote it as an instrumental, and then the vocals came in on top. So there's a lot going on in this song. And I think Rutherford said something like, you've got to write lyrics that even though they're cool to read and say, that you have to be able to sing them. Like by the time you put everything together, there's no space on this track. Like it's just chock full.
You're right. You're so right about that. And there's not a lot from Steve on here. There's not a lot of guitar. Phil puts in some pretty cool drums in there. There's no doubt. And it almost sounds like Tony is doubling Mike on the bass a lot with his Mellotron, Of course, it was the title's taken from a line of the 1817 sonnet on First Looking into Chapman's Homer by John Keats, which is one of my favorites, and I know you like it a lot.
Absolutely.
God, these private school boys.
I quote it almost daily to my conversations.
And then Banks also said it was loosely based on Childhood's End by Arthur C. Clarke. Arthur C. Clarke, I know who he is, because he had TV shows. I don't know his books because I don't read books because I'm a stupid American. That's why. And the Watcher race of extraterrestrials from Marvel Comics. That I might understand because they have that. They have a TV show on that, right? I also saw a note where Collins felt he needed to up his game a little bit because he'd been listening to Yes, which means he'd been listening to Bill Bruford, who's very jazzy. Because Alan White didn't join till September of 1972. If you saw Genesis live, he saw them with Bill Bruford, and that was the inspiration. Of course, Bill subbed in on the drums as soon as Phil became the singer for a bit of a tour before they found Chester Thompson. Yes.
And it's interesting to listen to this too, because you kind of forget, if you started with the 80s Phil Collins, not that he was not a great drummer, but how great he really is when he's not singing.
Yes.
He's killing it on this record.
He's really good. He's a talented drummer, talented musician overall, And the song's a little ominous, and it's about maybe what would aliens see if they came to an empty Earth, what would they see? But I think it kind of all comes together, and it's a great prog rock, up-tempo song. I mean, it's a good way to start off the album.
Yes. Yeah, and I'm glad that they stuck to their guns and didn't give in to the record company and put it on there because I think that it's aged pretty well. And while it's dense when you first start off on it, it turns into something that it's very listenable to upon re-listening.
Right, yes. And it was actually released as a bit of a single. I don't think it did any damage anywhere. It was backed with part of Supper's Ready, the Willow Farm bit. They had to have some kind of a single off the album, so that's what they went with. It cut down a little bit, of course. You can't put, what is this, a 7.5-minute song or something like that? You can't just put that out as a single, but they trimmed it down, as so many singles are, and they went with it. And the thing is, what's interesting is all songs are credited to the 5 of them, but we do have notes on who actually wrote these songs, right. And that was everyone but Steve Hackett, and that's probably why he doesn't have a whole lot going on in the song. But I'll tell you the song I didn't know, and I really like here is the second one, Timetable.
Okay.
Because I'd never heard, this is not on any of the Greatest Hits album. I don't think it's any of the live albums. And this is one Banks wrote on his own, basically. And there is a lot of piano in this, for sure. But it starts sweet, just piano, not a hard rocker. And then it's, it kind of builds up a little bit. It's a very medieval kind of theme to it. Kings and queens, days long gone, that kind of thing. What did you think of this one?
I liked it because it was a little more, there wasn't as much going on in the track. This was kind of like you need a little break after the Watcher. Mm-hmm. Okay, yeah, like you said, the piano intro at the beginning, it fits in, but it's not. It's just like it's a little bit of a rest, and I like what he does on the piano. And was this one of the ones that he brought in from an earlier session?
I'm not sure if it's an earlier session or if this is one that he just had been working on, and it's pretty well put together here. Yeah, there is a lot of piano and keyboard from Tony, but I mean, I like what Rutherford's doing on the bass here. Tony's not doubling him or anything. Mike is doing some good funky stuff on the bass here. I like it a lot. And then at the end, of course, it kind of fades out with lots of piano, but this could have almost been a single. It's under 5 minutes. It's a nice song. The lyrics, of course, I don't think are going to grab anybody because, again, it's just a little odd. I mean, all these are kind of over your head, and they're all kind of proud of it. I feel like it's like nobody's going to understand this, right?
Yeah, no one's read these books. Correct. Yeah, I wonder why they did not put this out as a single. There was only the one. Who knows? But I think you're right. It could have definitely been a single.
I think it would have made a good one. I think people would have. And you're talking about time and space, and looking for the answer. I mean, that's something we all can relate to. So I don't know, but probably look. The first single the Happy the Man single went nowhere. The non-album single, and then Watcher of the Skies goes nowhere. There's no reason to put out another one, right? It's like, let's put out a live album. Well, actually, I think the live album is because some concert got screwed up. Genesis Live, I think they were going to do a big concert at Wembley, and then the ticket printing got screwed up or something like that.
Oh, yeah.
And to recoup money, they put out their first live album or something like that. But Timetable, one I was not familiar with because I don't know the Foxtrot album that well. And I thought it was a nice one to find, to get to know.
Yeah, and that's always, we've said this before on the show, that's really what the great part about listening to a whole album is. You discover these tracks, they just fit and you love them.
Yeah. Absolutely. Now, track 3, Get 'Em Out by Friday. This is one that I do know, and Steve's been doing this for years. And I mean, this is a pretty cynical look at the world with a few archetypal characters, all played by Gabriel. This is almost Roger Waters like, and this is before Dark Side of the Moon, but this is very kind of Roger Watersian, like the rich man is out to screw all the working people, and he's lording over the guy who goes out to do his dirty work. The nice people get kicked out of their home. The guy in the pub's just reading the news about how we can't be more than 4 feet tall. It's a dystopian future set, September 9th, 2012, 10 years ago, Jackson.
Dun, dun, dun. Yeah, I always love that when they do that in the future. 1997, this is going to, okay, we've been there, done that. And I guess this was going on a lot in England at the time, and I'm sure everywhere else too, where they had like, I guess, rent controlled or something, apartments. And if you could get these people out, you could revamp it and then rent it for 3 times as much to the new people. So they had scams to get them out. We'll move you somewhere else or something like that. Like they called it a wrinkle or whatever, or
Mr. Winkle.
Yeah. Doing that technique. And then the whole thing about making everybody 4 feet tall so that you could fit more people into the building.
That's right.
That's a horrible thought, but it actually makes a lot of sense because, if you're looking at it from a dollars and cents perspective, Absolutely. And I do like the fact that Gabriel is doing the different characters too.
Yeah, definitely. And a little woe is me when he's doing the old lady who's kind of moving away from the other place.
Mm-hmm.
I think Rutherford and Collins are both great on this one. I think the rhythm section kind of keeps this going because, again, you got Gabriel telling the story of the greedy landlords and everyone involved. It's not sing-songy. It's not rhymey. I mean, although it does rhyme in spots, it's just you have to pay attention. You have to follow. And if the beat is off or it was kind of weird, then it might throw the whole thing off. But because those two were so locked in, I don't know. I think it works. I think it all works.
Yeah, and I think it's interesting too that Collins said at this point in time he was going to see Yes once a week.
Oh yeah,
and really trying to up the game as far as the musicianship. And this kind of sounds to me, the bass at least sounds very Yes to me, very Chris Squire on this track.
Yeah, and what was going on with them in 1972? Well, they're doing Close to the Edge, which came out, just before Foxtrot did. They're doing stuff like Fragile. Fragile
yes.
came out. Yeah, so Fragile came out, and they're kind of showing, hey, we are kind of lead prog people here.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, 8.5 minutes. It's got some ups and downs in it. It's written by the whole band except Collins, but John Hackett, Steve's brother, who is a great musician in his own right and is still touring, he gets a co-write on it. I don't know. It's so there's a passage of time in the middle of it, and you get to 2012, and there's a big slowdown. Right, slows way down. Almost a stoppage, and then it builds back up. It's kind of a medieval or Baroque music in there, and then it's back to the Greenheads winning in the end, and heaven is the next thing you must invest in to get where you're going. It's kind of like, you thought we had a chance, but nope, we're all under the thumb of these rich pricks,
And it goes like that today.
And it's really no different, folks. Sorry to burst your bubble. But a pretty epic song. I mean, 8.5 minutes, and it doesn't... Watch for the Skies is fairly benign. There's a lot going on in this Get 'Em Out by Friday. I don't know. It's a classic, and Steve and his band do it really well. Nads Sylvan does it very, very well.
Yeah, I'm talking about Steve Hackett and his new record that's coming out. I watched part of it, and to see Nad sing that, he does a very good job of approximating Peter Gabriel.
Yeah, which is his job. That's his role in the band as it is. Although, I mean, depending on what they're going to play on any given night, he has to sound like Phil Collins too sometimes, which isn't easy. But, I mean, he has a very distinctly Gabriel-esque sound to him most of the time, and when he does this one, I don't know, I think it pours out of him. I think he really embodies Peter's voice very well.
Hi, this is Steve Hackett. You're listening to The Ugly American Werewolf in London.
Next is one I also like, Can Utility and the Coastliners, and Hackett did the lyrics to this one, apparently, as a co-writer with Tony and Mike. Not one of the more common ones that you hear from, but it's one that builds and crescendos in a lot of different ways,
Yeah, and it's interesting because here's another one it has to do with, what did I write down now? Written by Steve Hackett. It's King, and it's Cnut, Knut, I guess, of Norway, and the legend or something, which, again, we've all heard many times before. No. But it's just interesting how you can take something, if you're a musician, and be inspired by it, and then put it to music, and how that translates forward into the song. And you can definitely tell, like you said, everything is credited to the whole band, but you can tell different, like, oh, I can see how, if there's more guitar parts in there, you can tell this is Steve Hackett's got his hand on this a little more than in other tracks.
That's right. And I do think at the end, Tony has a lot to do with this one. But it starts quietly. They do a couple of verses, and then it picks up during verse 3, and it starts to, build some steam here, and the drums come in, and the momentum builds, and it calms down for a while. There's a 12-string interlude, which then starts to build again. And we've got this ominous Mellotron. You can really hear the hum in the background. And then fast-paced on the acoustic guitars, whether it's 6-string or 12-string. But I think the break after the fourth verse is how the song is best known. It's kind of Banks' keyboard work that really is the signature part of this, towards the middle end. That's when you think of Can Utility and the Coastliners, that's the sound that really defines it.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm kind of interested towards the end, in that kind of bit, what is Rutherford doing on that bit before it becomes totally Tony's thing? He's doing some crazy stuff on the bass there. I'm not even sure what all it is. I mean, eventually Tony takes it over, but boobala, boobala, it's boobala, boobala, boobala. He's doing some really cool stuff with his harmonics there. I don't know, but it's nice. And then it becomes Tony's thing, and Steve gets in on there too, So I don't know. It's not quite 6 minutes. So it's the third longest of the 4 songs on the first side here. But I don't know. It's a different kind of song, but I like it.
I think it fits in well. I think it's one of those ones like you were talking about, the what's he doing at the end, Mike Rutherford. Mm-hmm. You really wish you could have seen him, kind of recorded and, what's going on? How is this fitting into it? Because sometimes on something this dense, things get lost. So it's interesting to pick up on a certain part and see how it fits in with the rest of the song.
Well, they also said maybe it had something to do with, because if it's based on this King Canute or whatever, his inability to hold back the incoming tide. That's Peter Gabriel, learning to deal with his role of being a lead singer and all of his flattering admirers. Like, okay, take it easy, guys. You sold 100,000 copies in your home country. Okay, just take it easy. You dress up like a woman just so people will come see your show. All right, so don't tell me that they're overwhelming you when you're doing these things to get attention, right? But that is side 1 of this epic album. And then side 2 it's really all Supper's Ready, the 23 and a half minute epic. But it starts with Horizons, which is a short acoustic thing from Steve, based on a suite for cello by Bach, because it is a little familiar, some bits to it, I would say. But he does it so well. And like he said when we spoke to him, there's nowhere to hide, really, when you're doing acoustic, right? There's no sustain there. There's no feedback or bending, to hold those notes and stuff. There's no tremolo, to hide different things. And he, again, this is a confidence thing. He was kind of shocked. He played it. And he's like, well, they're not going to want this, but here's the thing I like. And he's like, they're not going to want this. And when they said, yeah, we do want that, we're going to put that on the album. He's like, really? You liked it? Kind of thing.
It sounds great. This is Steve, kind of the classic, what you think of when you think of Steve Hackett playing acoustic. I think it would be Horizons. I think he said a lot of people thought this was a part of Supper's Ready, like a intro to it. Mm-hmm. But it's a standalone piece. I don't know really how you can. I mean, at 23 minutes in one side, this is the only other song. I don't know how you could argue it's not, but the intention was to have it be its own track.
And it is, I mean, what is it, 1 minute, 45 seconds? It's not a super long one, but it's not part of Supper's Ready. Supper's Ready is a totally different thing, and it's beautiful. It's a very nice piece, and you can play this in a lot of different settings. So honestly, it's a standout. I mean, it's not long enough to necessarily be called a song. I don't know. But it's a great piece of music. It's performed very well, and, well, I'm very hopeful I get to see him play that live.
Absolutely.
But now we're into the epic of epics. Supper's Ready. 23 minutes with 7 parts, and we got to include the odd little names of the 7 suites, which is something Yes would do also, right? They would have some 18-minute epic, and it would have 4 different parts, and you would name the 4 parts, and you would even give people writing credits within the 4 parts, or the 7 parts, as it were, here. Lots of going on. I guess that because they had grown confident as a live act and they were touring different countries around Europe and getting great feedback, that gave them the guts to go out there and say, all right, we need to write some extended pieces, right, that we're gonna pull off live, but that people can get into and be like a classical piece of music. So that's the way they took this thing. And I mean, I don't know. I guess we start from the beginning. It's massive. It's massive. There's so much in here.
Yeah, I think they wanted to, at this point in time, they wanted to up their game as far as being able to stand toe to toe with a Yes. Mm-hmm. So yeah, they needed something like this, like you said, with the different parts to the one big song, like they did in Close to the Edge. Yeah, I can't even imagine how the creative process on this went, just because there's so much stuff in here. Like, where do you even start with this? Okay, well, I've got this, and these 2 things don't go together. But I think if we worked them a little bit, we could make it part of this thing.
Yeah, no doubt. And so the Horizons definitely sounds like something Steve Howe would put on a Yes record, right? It's just a little acoustic,
Right.
whether it's its own standalone bit or it's the intro of some 20-minute song. That sounds like something Steve would do, right? So then you go to Supper's Ready. There's a lot of 12-string. There's a lot of guitar bits to start this one, right? And part one, which is lovingly called Lover's Leap.
Ooh.
Lover's Leap. It's the first 4 minutes of the song. It could have been a single, I guess, if you broke it out, because it is pretty. It does kind of have its own story to tell, I suppose. But again, it's very soft, lots of guitars, lots of 12 strings. Even Tony Banks might be playing 12 string on some of these.
Okay.
He would do that sometimes before the keyboard or the organ or whatever had to kick in. So yeah, I mean, it would be 3 guitars on there at some time. And then part 2, which comes in a little before 4 minutes, which is called The Guaranteed Eternal Sanctuary Man.
Mm-hmm.
This kind of builds on something you're going to hear later almost as a reprise at the very end, as far as the way Gabriel delivers these lyrics and the way the music goes. When they get to the last part 7, it's all very similar. So it's all almost like this is the build-up telling the beginning of the story, because it's kind of about Christ, is it not? At some point of this, I don't know.
Well, that's the whole underlying theme of the whole record, right? Because Gabriel was talking about like the actual Foxtrot, like if you take the numerology of all of and it comes back to, if you work it hard enough, you can get 666 out of it, and the devil and it obviously you had a lot of time to think about this, but
yes.
there is an underlying theme of kind of religion versus pagan images, I guess, or themes in this record.
And is this talking about the Last Supper? Supper's Ready? Is this right before he's betrayed by his own?
Yeah.
Who knows? And is that a theme? Oh, Peter's about to be betrayed. I'm like, take it easy. It's still a few years before they do Lamb Lies Down on Broadway. Just everybody relax, okay? But that second part, he's talking about a farmer and a fireman. There's some nice parts to it, and there's some weird kids singing along to it at the very end. And then about 5:48, 5:45, something, part 3, back to the guitars again. But then it's like, there's the waiting for battle. It picks up, right? It suddenly there's a bit of a it's a bit of a runner now, right? Almost. Phil is marching out a drum beat, lots of keyboards. Steve is plugged in, and suddenly it's a jam. Seriously, part 3, which is of course Ichnaton and Itzakon and their band of merry men, which is whatever it is.
Yeah.
And could that be from the Bible? I don't know. You're asking the wrong guy. But this jam is awesome. And Steve does get a chance to use his sustain a little bit here and put some real flavor on it while Tony is doing his thing. And again, this is a song to itself, right? It's about 4 minutes, this part 3. This is probably the bit that I like the best. I thought Steve showed really well. It's a good chunk. It's 4 minutes. It's not like 8 minutes. It's not like 1 minute. I thought it was, it's kind of my favorite part of the whole thing.
This is definitely more of the lively part. Collins is kind of flexing a little more here with his drumming. This sounds like it's more of the band jamming together. Yeah, I would agree with you on that. This is probably the best part of the song for me.
Because then they get to part 4, just before the 10-minute mark, which is, How Dare I Be So Beautiful. And this might have been where Peter would come out dressed as a flower sometimes. But it's only like, is it a couple minutes long? I don't know that it's that long, to be honest with you. It's not even like a minute and a half. And then he goes, and then you see Narcissus turns into a flower. And then you hear someone say, a flower. When he did this live in London, the audience was way into it. They all screamed at the same time, "A flower!" They were so into it, like, "Oh wow, would you look at that?" And then, of course, boom, straight into part 5, Willow Farm, which is different. This is a game changer. Instead of acoustic guitars, now you got that big fat keyboard Mellotron, right? Yeah. And they're starting to It's a bit weird in spots, this one. It's pretty heavy, and it does space out for a while, But this is, I don't know, this is more than 4 minutes on this bit. Again, this was the B-side, apparently, to Watch for the Sky single. So,
just this Willow Farm part?
Just the Willow Farm part, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
What is it, like 4 minutes and change? I guess it could be a standalone thing.
Yeah,
standalone track.
Yeah, and there's a flute in there. Peter does the flute bit when they kind of slow down with some spare acoustic parts. This is another one that Nad does a great job on live because this is the kind of the game changer. This is a gear shifter, right? You got the kind of spare. Narcissus turns into a flower, and then it's heavy now, and your voice has to pick up for that. So it's not my favorite. It's cool. It's different. But it's weird in some spots. And
then I wonder too, like I've got it written down that this was actually originally a standalone track. And so how do you take this, when you're in the creative process, how do you take this and say, no, here's what we're going to do. We're going to take this and we're going to slide it right into the middle of this other thing we're working on. Okay, cool. Because from here, it's going to get even weirder.
Yeah, it's one that Peter had written by himself, and I guess he went to Tony to say, okay, we got to change it. It can't just be acoustic stuff. We need something heavy from you on that Mellotron. So that's the way that worked out. And then, of course, they get into part F, somewhere in the 15s. At this point, you're starting to wear out a little bit. 15 and a half minute mark, 15.4, I don't know. It's 15 something. It's Apocalypse at 9/8 time, co-starring the delicious talents of Gabriel Ratchet, which I don't know what that means. I was thinking maybe it was made up of all their last names because there's a little Gabriel in there. You could put a little Banks, you could put a little Rutherford Hackett. I don't know. Am I grasping at straws there? I don't know. Right. But very interesting bit of the song here, man.
Yeah, and we're switching gears again. The 9/8 time signature is very strange, but it works. But I mean, that's one of the prog rock hallmarks too. Is playing in strange time signatures. So again, flexing out, letting everybody know that hey, we're at the forefront of this thing, just like everybody, just like the Yes and these other people that we're trying to not compete with, but kind of walk shoulder to shoulder with.
Yeah, well, and you could say compete. Yeah, I think that's probably accurate. Yes was selling records. Yes was selling, getting gold albums and stuff like that. So they needed to kind of get there. Banks didn't think there should be any vocals when it was written. He's like, this is not there's no vocals going over this. And he didn't think Gabriel could do it. And then as soon as he heard it, he's like, oh yeah, that's great. That's exactly what it is. So, it sounds like Tony Banks needs to just let Peter Gabriel do what he wants to do. And I don't think he wants to seize control.
Yeah, I think you're exactly right. I think, and I didn't see it for anything with what I did research for with this record, but I know for a fact Banks at some point in time said he was really thinking it was turning into the Peter Gabriel show. And that's where he really got cranky that, obviously Peter Gabriel is the mastermind of this whole thing. And you guys just playing his band. No, that's not how this works. I think, he always wanted to be in control. And I mean, who knows if he'd have let him off the chain a little more, what would they have gotten? I don't know.
Who knows, and he's wearing the dress with the fox on it. He's wearing the flower thing. But he did, I mean, Phil Collins did say, at some point, I think especially in America, there was basically a pink, which one's pink kind of a thing. Like, hey, Pete, when you put that mask on, those kids went nuts. They love what you do out there, Pete. And it's like, it's not Pete, okay? It's the five of us. We're a band. We wrote and play these songs together. But I do think this thing, finishes strong. These last two, Apocalypse and 9/8, and As Sure as Eggs is Eggs, are fairly strong. Although Sure as Eggs and Eggs, to me, is a reprise of part two there. And it obviously is. But I don't know. It's strong. It's a lot. Again, it's very dense. And now there's some heavy chugging in there. You're talking about the Pied Piper. You're talking about Dragons from the Sea. There's some odd lyrical pictures created here. Huge keyboard jam with a thumping bass. But it's also some scary organ-type stuff. And, when you sing stuff like, hey, 666 is no longer below. It's like, we've taken a journey here. Where are we? Where are we doing here? So we were in the good part. Now are we in the evil part? Oh, no.
Yeah, it goes back to the whole religious overtones, not terribly religious, but I mean, they are giving you parts of it, making you think, how does this fit in with the rest of this? Yeah, this does get a little bit weird. I think they talk about something about how Winston Churchill dressed in drag is one of the something I never wanted to think about, but okay, cool.
It used to be the British flag, yeah. So very odd. But then after that, it's back to the chorus, and then it's kind of back to the acoustic stuff and the build up to the end, because the very end, you talk about the lyrics, which are so famous among Genesis fans, when you're talking about Lord of Lords, King of Kings. He returned to lead his children home to take them to the new Jerusalem. this is the summer of the mighty ones. So this could be very Christian JC kind of based stuff.
Right.
Absolutely. And that's how they kind of wrap it up. So after 23 plus minutes, yeah, I mean, you're like, whew, I made it, man. Phew. And Steve told us himself when he was on our show, as Jeff Downs kind of told us, you can't really improvise on any of this stuff because it all goes together in a certain way. And so you can't really, A, you have to be true to it. B, you're going to throw off your bandmates if you decide to do something new. But at the very end, when there's some jimmies, like at the very end of that, that's where I can kind of do my own thing.
The only time I get really to be spontaneous on that is during the play out. I do something like the established phrases that were done when it was multi-tracked all those years ago, and then go off the plot and step through my noises and toys and all that kind of stuff. And it's surprising how it goes. Some nights it can be really great, and other times I think, you know, I'm just overplaying and it's not really cascading in the right sort of way. But there are times when you just got to go for it and say, well, I'm not going to be reverent at the end. I've done the whole thing as, you know, as far as it's written. This is it, the Sermon on the Mount. Here comes supper's ready. But maybe we get that little bit right at the end, and I can cut loose on that. And it usually ends up with the guitar sounding a bit like bird song in the end. I've usually got a backwards effect on it, and with my ring, I'm just circling the strings, and it sounds like tweeting birds, and it becomes another kind of music right at the end. And I'm very happy with that.
And I can't even imagine doing this, because I know they've done it live in the past, trying to do this without fail. Because I mean, you figure if you watch the show, I mean, what's even a long track is 7 minutes,
right? And
then you get to take a little break, you know, a little sip of water, kind of reset yourself. This is 23 minutes of going straight through. Like you said, you can't make a mistake because you're going to throw somebody else off. There's a lot of material here. It's one of those, okay, here we go, and I hope we see you on the other side.
Yeah, and Rutherford is switching between a 12-string acoustic to his bass. Of course, eventually he had one of those made, so he didn't have to set one down and pick another one up. He had just one built for himself, right? But even Banks had a 12-string back behind his keyboard set that eventually he'd set down and then go back to the keyboards. Steve is probably switching. You see Steve sit down during a lot of these performances, which is very rare for me. If you're not a keyboard player or a drummer, you stand and play. But he, you know, he had to concentrate on this stuff and maybe switch guitars too.
Yeah, I've seen him do that before, Steve, in concert. And yeah, it does look a little strange, but you know when that's happening. Yeah, this is okay, folks. This is the hard part.
It's time to focus.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. You know.
I think didn't even Ace Frehley say something about that? Like, what do you want? You want me to dance around on stage? You want me to play it correctly? Because the two things, like, you got to play it right, you really have to concentrate. And if you hit a wrong note, I mean, these people are animals.
Oh, I know.
These Genesis fans,
the
like
prog rock super fans who know every second of this 23-minute epic. Yeah. Now, when they did it live at the Palladium, there was a break. I mean, not like a prolonged break, but there's a big standing ovation, you know, people applauding, saying like, yes, you just pulled that off. It was awesome. You know, well done. We're all glad to be here, kind of thing. And it sounds great on his new live album, which we were fortunate enough to get an advance copy of. So if you pull it off for the seconds out, then yeah, of course, go to Foxtrot next. Why not? Because you already know half the album, because that's half the album, right? So, you know, you only have to learn the other half of the album, and most of those he's been doing on and off for years anyway. The whole band knows Genesis catalog so well at this point because he's done a lot of these, and I have every single one of them. I'm the sucker who buys all of them, and I'm going to be that sucker again, I promise you.
Well, I was going to say, we even asked him about that at some point in time. We interviewed him. Is it hard to switch between, you know, because for a while he had to finish the Seconds Out show and then go right into a couple days later the Foxtrot stuff. And he says the guys in the band, they're so tight. Like you said, they've done this for so long, they can switch very easily. They do a little rehearsing,
so I'm curious
and then they're right
to see
into
what his set list is going to be, because when he was doing Seconds Out's a double live album, so that's a huge part. He could just do that for the night if he really wanted to. He did 5 songs of solo stuff, including Shadow of the Hierophant, including Every Day, which is my favorite, Clocks, and he did a couple of new ones off Surrender of Silence, which I assume he will continue to incorporate. But now, does he also maybe have an acoustic bit where he can do some of the stuff off or underneath the Mediterranean sky? Does he leave a lot of stuff from Seconds Out in, or does he rotate some of those out and then bring in some other Genesis era hits, that maybe he hasn't done in the last couple of years as much?
Yeah, you have to figure that probably there's a good portion of the audience that will be there for both of them. Like, you're getting a lot of the people back to hear the Foxtrot stuff. So I would think, yeah, you'd have to change it out a fair amount. If you did the Foxtrot and all the stuff that you did on the last tour, people would be a little bit disappointed.
And I'm disappointed that I'm not going to go see him at Hammersmith, the old Hammersmith Odeon, now, of course, called the Eventum Apollo or something.
No,
stupid.
Stop that. Don't do that.
It makes me mad.
It's always the Hammersmith.
I think I'm going to be in America, hopefully with you, Jackson, doing something really cool with Pantheon that we can't wait to tell everybody about. But I don't think I'm going to be able to make that. But if I know Steve, and I think I do because I've spoken to him, which means we're old friends now, and we'll probably be vacationing together, in 2024. But he will be touring this Foxtrot at 50 for a while. He's definitely coming to continental Europe, where I'm spending more time these days. I'm sure he will come to America, so you get the chance to see it, and maybe it'll coincide and we go together. Who knows? That
would be great. What did you think overall of the? We got to see a little bit of the video too. What did you think about that?
I think it's cool. It's great to see Amanda with him. I'll always buy the double CD DVD set every time. I don't always buy. He's really great about. You can go to his website and pre-order it, HackettSongs.com. And you can get an autographed copy of it, And I think that the LP, the vinyl edition, may not come out till like Thanksgiving time. I think I saw a release date of like November 25th or something like that. Because there is a backup for vinyl production right now. But the CD, it comes out on September 2nd. And that's the one I'm going to go pick up at my local record store, wherever that may be.
I mean, it looked great. It sounded great. What I really liked was whoever did the editing. They focused on who you wanted to see. If the drummer was featured, boom, they went to them. There's a guy that's doing a whole bunch of stuff. He's got the saxophone,
it's Rob Townsend.
Clarinet. Yeah. He's working it back there. They cut to him. So the production looks great. The place looked like it was absolutely packed, and it was good to see Amanda on stage with him.
Yeah, I don't have the notes. Do you know where they filmed that? Or which show that was?
Live at Manchester.
Was it Manchester?
Let's see. Yes, this is. I don't have the venue, but it's in Manchester.
Okay, all right. I don't remember that was before or after I saw him, but at any rate, that's pretty cool. And I'm glad that he does this. And this is what an artist of his stature and at this point of his career should be doing every time. You do a tour, especially if it's like a year-long tour and a world tour. I mean, he did this on like 4 continents, maybe 5, I don't know. You should put out a live album, and if you can, put out a DVD. But people want to see you do it, and even if they saw you live, they want that memory of what it looked like, right? So not everybody I know can do video. That's got some expense attached to it. But everyone should be able to do a record, a live album of each tour they do. And the fact that he makes sure that there's a video of it. And then there's usually some kind of documentary about it too, oftentimes. I think he's really good to his fans about putting out quality releases and doing it on a regular basis.
And I think you're right. I think even people that went to the show would want a momentum, a souvenir of it. And also to go back and revisit it. And a lot of times if you do the video, like maybe your seats weren't that great, like it sounded great, but you didn't really get to see everything that was going on if you were way in the back. So this is a good chance to see what's going on, to see who plays what at different points in time. I like the fact that he does his own stuff first.
Right.
And then goes into the Seconds Out stuff.
It's like his solo stuff is opening for the classic Genesis stuff.
Correct.
And Amanda's playing with him on that stuff. So it's like Amanda and the Steve Hackett Band are opening for the Steve Hackett Band.
Right.
Which is pretty cool.
Yeah. And it was great to see her play. But when she sings on Shadow of the Hierophant, her voice is just like, how could it's not fair that somebody could sing like that and be able to play the guitar. She's incredible.
It's so beautiful. And she doubles Steve on Every Day.
Yes.
The guitar part all the way through the epic solo. It's crazy. It's awesome. What's also crazy is our sponsors, rarevinyl.com, have like a rare first edition of Foxtrot that's not only in like really amazing condition,
Oh boy.
but it has like the advertising in it from like back in the day.
Wow.
Yeah, it's over 300 quid. But if you use our code podcast, you can save 10%. That'll at least knock the shipping off of it. But I mean, for super fans, I can't believe that's still there. I bet that gets sold during this tour. Someone's going to see him or be so excited about the tour. It's like, I get first edition with rare stuff, mint condition, Foxtrot. Let's go ahead and get that, you know?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I can't imagine that. It must have been in somebody's collection that either that passed away or something, because I can't imagine anybody would part with that willingly.
You never know. It may have been that they were kind of Yes fans or something like that. They heard roundabout, oh, okay, well, Genesis like them, only here. And then they here's some of these odd stuff on here. The Mellotron, that's a little different. I don't know about that. I'm never going to listen to that again. And then, of course, now you got a pristine record, only been listened to once. Sits in the box for 40 years. But yeah, that's the fun about record collecting, is finding those mint condition, hard to find things, you know.
Right. Especially in a sea of just junk, and you're going through, this is not worth it. Whoa, what is this? Mm-hmm. That's what makes it all worthwhile, going through bins full of collections.
Yeah, you get a second print Foxtrot that's a little beat up, 15 quid maybe. First edition mint condition with the advertising in it, 350 quid. It's, you got to be a pro to understand that stuff. But I'm just glad Steve still does this. And here's the thing. People get into bands later in life, or a new generation is born who never had a chance to see them in the 70s, who never had a chance to see 80s big pop Genesis either. So maybe somebody's 23 right now and they're starting to get into Genesis, like, wow, this is really great. Can I go see them? Of course, the answer now is no. Genesis is hung up, and Phil Collins should be retired, God bless him. He is not in good shape. But if you want to see a real member of Genesis celebrating this music, playing it the right way, you're lucky, because you still got Steve Hackett to do it, and he will tour everywhere. I don't know how many countries he's been to the last 5 years or 10 years, but he will go South America, all over North America, all over Europe, obviously all over England, Japan, Australia, New Zealand, Far East. He goes to Africa. I don't know if he plays dates there, but he will vacation there. So, I mean, he will get out there. So if you're getting into Genesis, if you're just discovering them, get into Steve Hackett, get his live album that comes out September 2nd, and then go see him on the Foxtrot 50 tour in England, North America, Europe, wherever he's going to go in these next year. You won't be disappointed. If you like this stuff, the way they do it is amazing.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And yeah, I would echo all of that. Watching the video of it, if you can get your hands on that, it just adds so much to the experience. I would say go out and do that as well.
Yeah, Steve is not, it's his name on the bill, and he is center stage. But it's not just a look at me. He shares the spotlight very well. He lets other people do their thing, have their chance to, coming from Genesis where everyone was so talented, you have to give Roger King, his keyboard player, a little time to shine when he's doing the Tony Banks thing. You have to let Nad belt out these Gabriel lyrics, and do it the right way. You have to give everyone else a chance. And I think he shares it very well. You can see from social media, there's a lot of camaraderie with the band when they're on the road, and they all seem to get along well. It's not because maybe he's a benevolent dictator, or maybe it's Joe who's really running the show, and Steve can just say, well, it's her, it's not me. But it all seems to come together very well, and it's something to behold live. Great lighting to go along with it, too, as Chris Curran, I think, does their lighting. I'm gushing, I guess. But look, they're coming to Utrecht in May. I think I'm going to have to go see that. And hopefully they'll also stop in Amsterdam if I'm still around here.
It is nice to see that, because I think you're right. Like, even watching the end when they were doing the applause, he's conversing with people in the band. It's not like, yeah, you work for me, stand behind me.
Right.
I take all the credit. So it definitely looks like a band of people who enjoy playing together and put these shows on.
Well, thanks for tuning in, as always, guys, to episode number 92 of the Ugly American Werewolf in London Rock podcast. We talked about Foxtrot, the Genesis classic that turns 50 right around this time here. And, of course, Mr. Steve Hackett, guest of the show, episode 87, and a little snippet from this show. He's touring on it. He's doing Foxtrot at 50 this fall and into next year. A big tour of the UK this fall. He's got to go to the States to do some makeup dates from Seconds Out, and then I do believe he'll be coming to Europe, and my guess is also America, or North America anyway, to do Foxtrot at 50 for all his fans over there. So thought it'd be a great time to release it. Big dates for Genesis coming up. What is it, the 6th of October, I believe it is the 50th anniversary of Foxtrot. September 2nd, right after this show comes out, is when Steve's live album, Genesis Revisited, Seconds Out and More, is coming out, and you can get it anywhere. You can get it at hackettsongs.com. You can also get an autographed edition if that's what you want. You can do that at hackettsongs.com. They have it on LP in November, but right now you can get CD, you can get DVD, you can get autograph version, and I encourage you to do so. Then, of course, on the 9th of September, the next week, he kicks off his Foxtrot at 50 UK tour. So make sure you get your tickets for that. Foxtrot was obviously a big album for Genesis, though. I mean, they finally kind of found their way a little bit more, having Phil and Steve in the band. And obviously on the tour, Peter Gabriel got him some pub, right? Big press from wearing his wife's dress and the fox head on the stage. Got him some ticket sales in the U.S. Got him some more zeros in their paychecks. And then, of course, that led to them moving on to make the epic Selling England by the Pound in 1973, which we did review. I believe that was on show 28, but it really showed, a lot of people consider that the pinnacle of the classic Genesis era with Steve and Phil in the band. But this one was an important precursor, important to them in a big way, not only as gelling as a band, finding their sound, getting out on the road and doing it live. It was big for them. And our buddy Steve Hackett is now celebrating that with the Foxtrot at 50 tour. So, as usual, folks, we want to know, did we get something right? Did we get something wrong? Did we miss the point? Did we leave out your favorite part? Hey, you got to let us know. You can email us, uglyamericanwerewolf@gmail.com, or you could tweet or DM us. It's @ugly_werewolf or @actionjack72. We're trying to do a little bit of Instagram here, too. We're trying to figure out this social media thing, guys. We're not great at it, but we're working on it, and we appreciate everybody who follows us and everybody who has something to say. You know, let's get some banter going. Let's say what you like and what you don't like. Let's start some conversations. Of course, we have to say thank you to our partners, Pantheon Media, Pantheon Podcasts, with over 100 great podcasts out there, music podcasts for you. We appreciate dearly our sponsors at rarevinyl.com. And remember, if you go to rarevinyl.com or EIL.com and use the code podcast, you can save 10% off not only your first order, but every order you make with them over time. And like we said in the show, there's a really sweet first edition issue of Foxtrot available for anybody who wants it. Use our code, you'll save 10%. And of course, we want you to download and subscribe wherever you get your podcasts, wherever it may be. Apple, iTunes, Amazon is big for us. Good Pods, once again, put us in their top 10. We really appreciate it. Good Pods, it's a fun way to interact with folks. But really, anywhere you get your podcast, please download, please subscribe, and please, if you think about it, if you do like the show, give us a positive review on any of those. It just helps us find more rock and roll fans like you. And if you send it to us or we get it, we will certainly read it on the show. So with that, folks, next week we're going to get into a classic that's having another big milestone for us. It was important for me and Jackson, and that's Rush Signals. Turning 40, came out in 1982 with the classic Subdivisions on there, but it was a pivotal time for the band as they were kind of moving on, growing up a little bit, changing the way they did things, incorporating some new sounds. It's a fun conversation. I think you'll like it. So until next time, rock and rollers, to all of you all around the world, be cool and stay safe.